Okay, the September 24th, 2020 meeting of the Woodbridge Township Board of Education will please come to order. Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Ms. Bourdain?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Molnar?
Here.
Mr. Sedana?
Here.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Here.
Mr. Velez?
Here.
And Mr. Delapietro.
Here. Okay, Mr. Secretary, as required by the Sunshine Law, please read the notice of meetings.
Thank you, Mr. President. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted as follows. July 21st, 2020, August 12th, 2020, emailed to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Municipal Clerk's Office, posted in Avenel Middle School and the Board of Education Administration Building, also published on the school district website.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Ms. Anderson, please read the closed session statement.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to motion for the approval of the following closed session statement. In compliance with the Sunshine Law, the board must go into closed session in order to discuss subjects exempt from the public portion of our meeting. The discussions to be held in closed session will be regarding personnel matters. Any information regarding the closed session discussion will be released to the public when the reasons for discussing these matters in closed session no longer exist.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Molnar. I have a motion by Ms. Anderson, second by Mr. Molnar. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Okay, at this time, the board's going to retire to closed session. We'll be out no earlier than 6:30. Okay, at this time, the board will return to regular session. Please rise for a salute to the flag, a moment of silence. Okay, do I have a motion to reconvene?
So motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Molnar. I have a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Treewasser. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yeah, here.
Ms. Bourdain?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Molnar?
Here.
Mr. Sedana?
Here.
Mr. Tamburello? Mr. Treebwasser?
Here.
Mr. Velez?
Here.
Mr. Delapietro.
Here. Will someone make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meetings?
So motion?
I have a motion by, do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any additions or corrections? Okay, seeing none. I have a motion by Ms. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Molnar. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Mr. Secretary, please state for the record any notice of bids received by the board.
Thank you, Mr. President. On September 11th, 2020, IFB 21-05 for window air conditioners. Also on September 11th, 2020, IFB 2107, lumber, hardware, and industrial supplies. And on September 15th, 2020, IFB 2112, student transportation services to and from school.
Okay, Mr. Secretary. To facilitate the flow of this meeting, all questions and comments from the public will be addressed after the presentation of all agendas. By order of the governor, we are limited to a capacity of 25 people in this room at one time. We ask that once you have made your comments and listened to the response, if any is given, to please vacate the room, allowing another speaker the opportunity to comment. This is a request, not a demand. Thank you for your consideration. Dr. Zaga, please give us an overview of the graduation profile for the 2019-20 school year.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last July, we had 930 students graduate from our three high schools. 302 from Colonia, 329 from JFK, and 299 from Woodbridge. The graduation percent of those students in the class was 99% at Colonia, 99% at JFK, and 98% at Woodbridge. We're happy to say that the percentage of students who entered college from those three schools, Colonia was 87%, JFK was 83%, and Woodbridge was 87%. We're also proud of our 23 students who entered the military. This information will be posted on the website tomorrow, along with our graduation cohort rates generated from the New Jersey Department of Education.
Thank you, Dr. Zega. Superintendent's agenda? Dr. Zega?
Mr. President, I have 21 items to present to the board.
Okay, I have a motion from the superintendent's agenda. Do I have a second?
I make a motion
Do I have a motion?
for the superintendent's agenda.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Truebosser. Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, second by Ms. Bourdain. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Roll call, Mr. Secretary?
Ms. Anderson?
I'm going to abstain on item number 20 in the name of JFK Rehab Institute. Yes to all other items.
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez? Yes. Mr. Delapietro?
Yes. Okay, policy and planning agenda, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Delapietro, sir. The Policy and Planning Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, moves the following 12 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Treeweiser. Okay, roll call, Mr. Secretary?
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez? Yes. Mr. Delapietro?
Yes. Curriculum, Mr. Harris.
Delapietro. The Curriculum Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, also presents the following 12 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sedana. Roll call, Mr. Secretary?
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez? Yes. Mr. Delapietro?
Yes. Finance and Insurance, Mr. Tamburello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance and Insurance Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Business Administrator Board Secretary, presents the following 10 items. This evening, I move for the adoption of the foregoing 10 items.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tamburello. I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Tamburello. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Anderson. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes. Technology, Mr. Sedana.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Technology Committee, on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, present the following 3 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Sedana. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Velez. Mr. Tamburello, I'm sorry. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Mr. President, I just want to congratulate Dr. Zega, Mr. Bader, for putting the effort in for item number 1, which is actually grant money, so it doesn't come out of the budget.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes. Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Delapietro. The Buildings and Grounds Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and Business Administrator, present the following 3 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Harris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Tamburello. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes. Transportation, Mr. Velez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Transportation Committee, on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Board Secretary / Board Administrator, present the following 3 items, and I move for the adoption of foregoing.
Okay, I have a motion made by Mr. Velez. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Anderson. I have a motion made by Mr. Velez, seconded by Ms. Anderson. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
And Mr. Delapietro?
Yes. Personnel agenda, Mr. Molnar.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Personnel Committee, on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, presents the following. Tonight, I will be moving 41 items.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Molar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Treewiser. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
I'll abstain in the name Michael Henderson on item 40, yes on all other items.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
And Mr. Delapietro?
Yes. Mr. Bush, do you have any recommendations?
None at this time.
Okay, is there any old business that should be brought to the attention of the board?
President, thank you. At the last board meeting, we talked about a reentry plan. We said that we would reevaluate at the end of September, and our target date to start up our hybrid plan was October 12th. As of right now, we are gathering information from our teachers, from our families within the town, and trying to get the schedules together. As of right now, that October 12th date looks like it should be able to work out. So we anticipate, unless something significant happens between now and October 12th, we fully anticipate to be moving to our hybrid plan. Remember, that includes 2 days of live instruction, 2 half-days of live instruction for students who opt for that. Students may still choose the fully remote option, and that's the information that the principals are gathering now. Once the schedules are made, the more specific details will come from the principals. But right now, we said we would reevaluate at the end of September. It's the end of September, and it looks like we will be able to come back on October 12th. And more details from the principals. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Zega. Any other old business that should be brought to the attention of the board? Okay, seeing none. Any new business that should be brought to the attention of the board? Seeing none. Okay, if you wish to say something, please come to the microphone, provide your name, section of the township that you reside for the record. Please limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes in accordance with Regulation 1100D. No response will be given until you have fully completed all of your comments, so as not to interrupt your 5-minute opportunity to speak. For those residents who are unable to attend tonight's meeting in person, you can email your comments to the superintendent at woodbridge.k12.nj.us.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ganesh. I am a resident of Woodbridge Township, and I represent Hindu Swayamsevak Sangh. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Board of Education, Dr. Ziga, Daniel, Akshar, and all the Board of Education members for bringing what we call the Equity Commission. So this is pretty important because right now we are at the cusp of, a lot of things, especially after this pandemic. The best thing to address is, as we all know, this content is the king. So to address this main point of how to go to the root of addressing systemic racism or discrimination, this township, as you all know, has been highly populated with the Indian population, people from different walks of life, staying in this township. So what we experience is from our culture, from the Indian culture, there is a saying that whatever you see is not the truth, whatever you hear is not the truth, but the truth is going to be what you kind of experience and analyze together. So with having said that, that is the culture. We have had the experience and the privilege of having superintendents and as well as the principals of schools and the teachers and the staffs to do what we call the Guru Vandana program. Guru is nothing but, in our culture, it's before God even, right? So Guru is a person who we place at the highest pedestal. So we have helped felicitated a lot of teachers over a period of time. So what we have experienced during this time is People always have let us know, even one of the times mayor said, you're underrepresented, you don't come and represent in a forum like this. Please come and put forth all your views and all that. So here is what we have some of the, I'd like to outline, try to bring to your attention some of the points which can point towards a problem statement, but here is where we can offer a solution statement as well. So the problems are here. The content is very primitive about India and representing Indians. Could be represented much more in a fair, because this Equity Commission is a perfect poise for addressing these concerns. And then, say for example, why there are a lot of gods, we could address that pretty well. We have scholars who have gone through this comprehensively with the California textbook case and California education, where people have come forward with the scholars and presented their views and put forth all their views in a very researched, very comprehensive fashion. So what happens is there is a low self-esteem in the students. They often end up doing stereotyping. It also has to do with the low self-esteem, not to mention about the miscommunication and misapprehensions about the culture itself. So the culture should be very well brought together, and it should be not to a point of essentializing it, but to a degree of how you could take it, inherently pretty well address this. So I think from the content of the textbooks, there's a perfect way to address this. Here we offer, I know the time is running out, I would like to offer some of the solutions that we could come forth, have a group of scholars who have done this, been there, done that through California textbook education case that they have handled on state and as well as the schools. Then also address this comprehensively from that. We could also conduct some workshops where we could sensitize people about what is the Indian culture about more comprehensively, so that people understand it pretty well. So when we understand that pretty well, we all, my kids have graduated out of this town. One kid is still studying in this. We have faced in the middle schools as well as they have faced some kind of nudges on that. So I would really like to take your attention and being able to address some of those core concerns concerning the content around India and the Hindus as such, so that this township, which is always a vibrant community, could help address, and because this is one of the largest population of Indians in the United States. So I would like to thank you for this opportunity, and a great job done by the Woodbridge Township and the board to having to bring the Equity Commission to be able to address all this in a very fair and transparent way. I thank you so much, and namaste.
If you want, tomorrow, why don't you give Dr. Zaga a call, and you can work it out, and we could work it into our Equity Commission. Sure. Thank you. That's excellent. Perfect.
Hi, my name is Deborah Goldberg. I'm a resident of Colonia and also an employee of the township. I'm a school nurse. I just have a couple questions as far as the safety measures, since I am a health professional in the buildings, well, in my building. Are all of the schools going to be, all the safety measures for the guidelines of the state, are they all going to be addressed before school opens? Because my instance alone is, I commend you, I'm getting an air conditioner, but that does not put fresh air into my office. I have baseboard heating that's not vented outside. So I'm asking the board or the administration if it's possible to get some of the school nurses who have lack of ventilation in their rooms, HEPA filters. At least these are freestanding. It'll clean the air that's in the room, because we are going to be the ones who are going to be faced with all of the sick kids. And I really do not want to bring any kind of sickness home to my house. I left a part-time job because of COVID, and I just think that not only for my safety, but for the students that are coming into my office or sitting in my office, I think a HEPA filter would be the best solution, because my school is gonna be torn down or sold in a couple of years. I don't expect anybody to come in and reconfigure all of the schools. It's impossible, and there's not that much money to do something like that. However, a HEPA filter, they can supply in the nurse's office, that's where all of the infections are gonna fester. And this would clean the air in the nurse's office, which would keep me safe and the children I have in that room safe. So that's, and I commend you, because I would not want your jobs. It's been an up and down, crazy time, and it's not gonna get, and it's gonna get worse before it gets better. But I'm looking forward to going back to school in October. But I wanna go back to school with the safety measures in place, to where I'm not at risk and my students aren't at risk of catching anything. So that's all I have to say, thank you.
Mr. Delapietro? Through the chair, Mr. Wolferman, is that something we could look into? HEPA filters, I'm not familiar with the product, but is that something we've considered, or would you consider tomorrow with your staff?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President, through the chair to Dr. Zager, Mr. Wolferman, have we worked with the association in the safety procedures that have been placed in and working together as a team? So that way, the night before we're ready to open schools, you know, we might think that we have everything in place, but the association might turn around and say, well, listen, this isn't up to par, this isn't up to par. In my opinion, it would be better to get this all solved now, so then that way, when the parents are expecting to go back to school the following day, and then we have to send the Honeywell out saying that, you know, we're gonna have to stay on, you know, remote learning still. You know, I think we have to get together with the association and go through these buildings and, you know, and just, everybody has to have, you know, take ownership in this plan that we're going into. Because at the end of the day, you know, the recipe for teaching a child is you need a school, you need a student, you need a teacher. And there's not a big, you know, virtual learning is good, it'll carry you to a point. But we really have to make an effort when we do go back. First of all, we need the building completely safe, or we can't go back. But I think the administration and the board and the union have to work together and both take ownership in this plan that we're going to come forward with. So at the end of the day, the association is comfortable with the plan, the board is comfortable with the plan, the parents are comfortable with the plan. Thank you.
Through the chair. Mr. Molnar, yes, Mr. Jeffrey and I are in constant communication.
Okay.
Anyone else? An email? Okay, one second.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me come speak, Dr. Zaga and the rest of the board members. I'm here representing myself and my feelings concerning an issue that is something that I know that you can't discuss publicly with me, and I do not expect you to, but I'd like to voice my opinion. I'm here in support of a former colleague, Tara Tolley, in reference to her recent suspension at JFK High School. I have known Tara for over 20 years and have always known her to be a kind and a compassionate, as well as understanding, fair, and upstanding woman and teacher. I have known her in a professional capacity as well as socially. I am proud to call her my friend, and I am writing, or I am talking to you, to express my displeasure and outrage at the reasons that you have stated she has been suspended. You have shown a total lack of confidence in her, as well as trust in an outstanding, well-loved, dedicated teacher, staff member that has never had a complaint regarding her professionalism or her integrity. She is a daughter, a sister, a granddaughter, a niece, a military wife and mother. in our community and has been a dedicated teacher for many years. A teacher that has volunteered in numerous roles that have never had a complaint against her. She has have all of you led an exemplary life in private? You all have families, you all have children. Have you all been perfect in everything that you have done? There was once a time when a teacher was looked up to and respected. Tara is a well-respected member of our community, serving in volunteer capacities in different organizations. At JFK, she has been advisor of the Heroes and Cool Kids, working with students that serve as role models to young, influential middle school students. You all approved her in that capacity. Now you are showing a total lack of support and casting doubts on her integrity. Why am I here? I am here to support her. Our world is a different place today. Our township, society, and demographics have changed drastically. Change can be difficult. We cannot change history, but we can change how we deal with it in each of our lives. I personally am a product of this school district. I attended my schools K through 12 here in this district. I have had wonderful experiences and I have had not so wonderful experiences. I have been blessed to have had a family that have supported me in my life. During my formative years in elementary school, I was taught many subjects where we learned about the United States and world history. We learned about differences. We learned about how fortunate we were to be American and about freedom and what was sacrificed for us. Specifically in music class, in weekly auditorium gatherings, the entire school learned and sang patriotic songs. Now, being patriotic and singing these songs is considered politically incorrect. Every day in school, we started with a prayer, a salute to the flag, and singing of a national anthem, and we sang them proudly. Today, children in high school are told they do not have to stand for the national anthem, yet we have groups that are meant to mentor and teach leadership and to be good role models and good citizens, yet we do not teach them to respect our own country. Simply asking a student to stand quietly and respectfully is not imposing on their rights. It is teaching them to do the right and proper things. I have lived in this country and I have lived out of this country. And I can assure each and every one of you, if you have never been in another country where things are suppressed, you do not know what it is like. And you do not realize what can happen to you if you are not being respectful to your flag as well as any other country's flag. We as adults should teach our students and youth to always put forth the correct foot and always understand what is right from wrong and what can be misinterpreted as being respectful or disrespectful. What has happened to respect, wisdom, and life experiences to teach and help our students to navigate the changing world. Today we live in a cancel-out society. We must say yes to everything put before us. Children today are now telling adults what they want without taking the time to learn through life experiences. The word no is not understood in their vocabulary. I am asking you to be very careful in how you make your decisions concerning Tara's 100% misunderstood, taken out of context situation. She is being targeted and set up for something by a group that does not have good intentions towards our town. Just put yourself in her position in your own life public experiences. This could be any one of you or any one of your family members. And you would not like to be in that position. I promise you that. How would you feel about that situation if you had no control over it? What has happened to one of your loved ones? Have you always been the most upstanding citizen and role model in life? I personally was victimized as a teacher in this district. I am not ashamed or embarrassed for the tenure that I had here. Tara did nothing wrong. Please do not embarrass yourselves by giving a lame excuse such as bullying or being politically correct, or that she must be held accountable and you must do something to have control. Please be aware you could be the next victim of this group.
You're at, just wrap it up real quick, you're out of time. I'll let you-
Okay, I'm okay with
Okay.
that. I was basically done.
Okay,
Thank you so very much.
you're welcome, thank you. Email?
I have two emails. One is from a Mrs. Rivera. I have a question for tonight's meeting since I am unable to attend. My son is currently a junior in Woodbridge High School, and in the spring, when school was shut down, he took the driver's education course with his gym teacher online. Obviously, these students couldn't take the written DMV exam that is given at the end of the course since they were remote. I've been asking various emails about when these students will be able to take this written test in school, and Dr. Lotman said that they were working on it. But it is hard since the students were not back in school yet. I feel that if we can have the students starting on October 12th and have students come into the school for school pictures this week, that something could be worked out so that students can have the test provided in social distance classrooms somehow, so these students can obtain their permits so they can proceed with driving school courses. Thank you. I spoke with the high school principals today, and they are addressing it. They're going to start, those students who are in this situation, they'll call them in small groups and have them tested. They want to also provide some online, there won't be a formal review, but they will be providing these students with some reference material so that they can review for the exam. The other email we have,
Mr. President, through the chair?
Yes, okay.
Dr. Zaga, so if they do take the class, the written test, and they get it, do we have, with motor vehicle kind of being out of whack since the pandemic, I mean, there's only certain motor vehicles that are handling certain things. For the kids to get their learner's permit, are we going to be able to get them their documentation after they do take their written test and pass?
I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I believe that once they get the card, then there's a DMV process, and they get their driver, their permit, their learner's permit.
Yeah, I know they have to do the 6 hours of, you know, I guess behind the wheel, but I didn't know if there was any paperwork with the DMV, because it's very hard to get into the DMVs now.
It certainly is. I know we give them the card, but I'll get an answer for you that tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The other email, hello, Dr. Zaga and Board of Education. My name is Jessica, and my family lives in Fords. I have 2 children in the district in middle and elementary school. I want to thank all of the teachers for doing an amazing job. As a nurse, I'm very concerned about the health and safety protocols that will be pulling both of my children and will be pulling both of my children if proper protocols are not followed. I have a few questions about the safety of the hybrid plan and one about the learning experience as a whole. Number 1, will kids be eating lunch at school? If the answer is yes, where will the kids be eating? Will the kids be taking off their masks? Will there be partitions between kids? So the middle school and high school students will get a grab-and-go lunch at the end of the day. Elementary students will be eating their lunch in their classrooms. Obviously, they will have to take off their masks to eat, and will they have partitions between kids? No. If the students will be taking off their masks for 20 to 30 minutes for lunch every day, this sends up a major red flag for me. Having kids maskless while eating and talking compromises any precautions put in place previously, even with the windows open and fans on. Question number 2, what will be the consequences for children who intentionally break the protocols or for parents who knowingly send their kids to school sick or do not sign the form on Genesis? There will be administrative consequences. I can't tell you what they are right now, but there will be consequences. Obviously, we want to try and prevent that from happening, but there will be consequences. And there's a third question. Will teachers be required to be tested? No, we cannot require the teachers to be tested. And then the email goes on. I have one major question about the learning experience. Are teachers going to be teaching online at the same time as their in-person students? Online is how the kids will be learning most of the time, and my worry is that teachers will be hard to understand with masks on, or that they may not be able to give much focus to the kids who are online. The answer to that question is it will depend on once the schedule comes out. We just like we had planned, we're going to try and pair the online kids with the online teachers to as much extent as possible in the elementary schools. But in high school and middle school, it will be the teacher, whatever teachers the students have now, that's the teacher they'll have. Finally, the email ends. Thank you again to all of the teachers for all of their amazing work, all caps. And my family wishes you all nothing but the best of luck and good health. Thank you. one more email just came in, and this is from Lauren Gerlight. Fingers crossed that this plan is ready to go for October 12th. My question is, how long will it take the principals to let us know, and even the students know, what the hybrid will look like? Are we just live, whether just in school 2 days a week, or are we live in an additional 2 days on Zoom, Google Meet? Parents who work would like to have more than a few days' notice to ensure that their kids are on school on time or have the support at home for any tech issues that may arise when they are home learning. I am 100% ready for these kids to be back in school with their friends and teachers. I just want to have a head start on what my kids' care will look like and set my work schedule based around the school hybrid program. So there will be 3 groups of students, and this is all online. There'll be 3 groups of students, an A group, a B group, and a totally virtual group. The A group will come in on Mondays and Tuesdays. The B group will come in on Thursdays and Fridays. The all virtual students will be all virtual all the time. When the A group is in on Mondays and Tuesdays, the B group and the all virtual group will receive virtual instruction. It'll be content that's from the classroom. And then the reverse will happen on Thursdays and Fridays for the B students. I would advise anybody who has any questions about the particulars to contact your principal, because of the nature of the schedules and trying to accommodate all the students and students and teachers who are either in school or fully remote, the schedules will vary not only from school to school, but from grade to grade. So your best, I can't really speak to the specifics of each individual school. Your best bet is to contact your principals. Thank you.
Yeah, Brian.
Brian Jeffroy, President WTEA. First of all, Mr. Molnar, I want to thank you for asking that question about reaching out to the WTEA. And I will say that we do have an excellent dialogue with the administration, but I just would like to bring forward some concerns I have. First, you know, the staff, many staff members want to return. They're ready to return, but they want to make sure it's done in a safe way for both the students as well as the staff. One of the concerns is staffing, that are we going to be able to replace the number of staff members that are on tonight's agenda taking leaves. We know how difficult it is getting substitutes on a normal setting. So to replace 35, 37 teachers, those would have to be people that are, you know, extended leaves, not just, you know, someone who's a daily substitute. Plus, on any given day, particularly when they want people to stay home if they're under the weather, we're going to need a good number of substitutes in a district our size. And my concern is we will not have the staffing. We had a problem with substitutes last year. We had to combine classes because there were not subs. We cannot do that type of situation going forward. So as we have more people that need to take leaves or have medical issues, we want to ensure that there's proper staffing for the protection of the students. Air quality, as Ms. Goldberg brought up before about the HEPA filters in nurse's office. We want assurance that each and every unit ventilator in the district has been checked. We know the filters have been changed. Our custodians do a great job, but someone needs to make sure that they're working because that's our fresh air intake. We want to make sure there's screens and windows so we can open the windows as well. It's not unreasonable to be able to open a window to get fresh air in the classroom. And unfortunately, opening the windows when there's no screen, it does have insects coming in. You have students with allergies. It's just not a good situation. We also want to, you brought up before about eating in the classroom. This is a concern from many staff about eating in the classroom. We're in confined space with no masks on. I understand the dilemma that is for elementary, and I'm not sure the answer on that, but I think that's something we have to look at. How do we do that when you're in such a small confined area and for a half-hour period with people without masks on? Those are some of the major concerns. As for the instructional aspect, I think there will be some glitches trying to teach the A kids, the B kids, and the C kids at the same time. How that will work, we'll have to wait and see. But I think, people should be prepared that it will not be the same as what we're getting now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amber Jarrett, Woodbridge proper. I know you said to contact the principals, but I think one of the primary issues I've had in this district and many parents is the lack of consistency across schools. So as a Woodbridge High School parent, as I decide whether to send my child to the hybrid, which I initially chosen, or the all virtual, I have an issue with not being clear about what that hybrid's going to look like. I realize he'll go Monday, Tuesday, he's in the A group. But I guess right now he's getting 4 days of live instruction. So my concern is if I send him hybrid, is that going to be live streamed? Is it going to, the other days that he's home, or is it going to return to kind of what it was in the spring where he goes on Google Classroom and just does some assignments? Because that's not the same quality. I will say thus far, I have appreciated the difference from the spring, but I guess the concern is it's hard for a parent to make those decisions when we don't know what it's going to look like, and I don't feel comfortable knowing that Woodbridge High School may look different than Colonia High School, which may look different than JFK, because that's not okay. There's already equity issues in the district in terms of school performance and other things, and access to resources and such. So to go into this saying, call your principal, it should be consistent across the district. I should know whether my son's going to go from 4 days of live instruction to 2 and just have Google assignments for the rest of the week, because that's obviously less than what he's getting now. I want him in person. I want him to be, with his teachers and his friends, but I have concerns about that. And just the schedule itself. Right now, there are breaks built in between the classes, which is imperative, I think, with kids on the computer. He has that half-an-hour lunch break right now. But when he goes hybrid, what is that going to look like? Is that half an hour gone? I feel like there does need to be consistency. It can't just be a school by school, grade by grade. I understand the issues with trying to figure this all out, but as parents, that's not a very comforting thing to hear, especially when lack of communication and, like I said, consistency has already been an issue. So I just would think that it would be nice for parents to have that communication prior to making these decisions, and for it to be, across the board kind of as much as it can be, because I think about my son leaving school, for school at like 9 in the morning is the schedule. Now he gets on 9:20, but he walks to school, so he'd leave at 9. He's not going to be home until almost 3, and he's going to get a grab and go lunch. But then again, I don't want a meeting in the school. I don't know what the answer is, but I don't know. I would just push for the district to maybe come up with some more consistent, I don't know. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Jarrett, thank you. Just to be clear, the high schools will have the same schedule. When I meant contact your principals, more for the elementary. Their schedules are going to be a little bit different depending on who's there and who isn't there. But the high school schedules, all 3 high schools will have the same schedule.
Anyone else? Anybody else? Okay. Well, seeing no one, no more emails. Okay, this time I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So motion?
Motion by Mr. Mueller, I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.